I hope you're all feeling good here today. I certainly am, and you know, we meet some of the most interesting people at the Farm Progress Show. Some lady, I just arrived this morning, tried to sell me a pup. Yeah, she had a nice cardboard box and had 3 little brown pups in there. Boy, they were cute. Gosh, I wanted one of them. And she talked about them a little bit, said this one here I call Killer, and this one over here I call Lightning, and this one over here is Liberace. Well, I said, that's cute, my goodness sake. I suppose you call that one Killer because he's the meanest? She said, yeah, that's right. And I said, you call the other Lightning because he's the fastest? She said, yeah. I said, how come you call the other Liberace? And she said, well, he's the pianist. Oh, right. Well, we had a wonderful time last night. By goodness sake, had a good night's sleep. Now, that doesn't always happen to people like me who travels the countryside. Wherever I go, the people I work for usually get my motel for me. And folks, I've had some dandies. I checked into one over in Ohio the other night, and they got the place for me. It was a little mom and pop thing, you know. And the guy, I walked up there and he said, have you ever stayed with us before? And I said, well, I don't know. I'd have to go home and check my towels. But it was kind of a nice little place, a motel, small. I stuck the key in the door and broke the window. But they had a Gideon Bible there, and they didn't trust people because the Gideon Bible was on a chain. But they had a card in there. I looked at it, and I kind of read the card, and there it said, if you're an alcoholic, call this number. Well, fortunately, I don't have that problem. But I did call the number. It was a liquor store 2 blocks away. But after I delivered my speech, I went back to that motel, and I called the front office of it and told the guy, I said, I'd like to leave a wake-up call. Well, he said, we don't give wake-up calls. I said, come on, fella, you got to be kidding. I travel all the time. You always get a wake-up call. He said, no, we don't. He said, by the way, did you see that little chocolate wafers on your pillow? I said, yeah, matter of fact, I already ate it. He said, you ain't going to need no wake-up call. Oh, he was right, too. Well, I'm not going to stand up here and bore you with a lot of talent. I just want to extract some laughter from you people. How many of you people think we need more laughter today? Doggone right. We certainly do. I just spoke for the Indiana Medical Association the other night, all doctors and their wives, and they agreed 100% that everything works better in your old system with laughter. And so they encourage us to do it. And don't hold back if you want to laugh, because that causes gas. I get a lot of good help from farmers across the country. They've always been nice. On the way here, I saw a farmer out by his mailbox, and I pulled over to the side, and I said, I said, how do you get to the Farm Progress Show? He said, well, generally my son-in-law takes me. And he walked back in the house, you know. Right. Well, I tell you, I know about farming, folks, and I've done her way back there. I started farming with horses a long time ago. Back then, fertilizer was a 4-letter word. Got one lady explaining that to her husband. But you know, farming's not that easy today. You got lots of things to contend with. All kinds of organizations are checking on you to see what you're doing with the soil and your animals and all that stuff. And we had a farmer in our area there that had a whooping crane moved in on him. And the darn whooping crane was roosting on his tractor seats and his gates and making a mess out of things. It was just horrible. And the farmer tried to shoo him away, you know, and sick the dog on him, and the darn thing would fly off a little way, back he'd come. More roosted. Well, by gosh, he tried everything that he could think of, and he finally gave up. The farmer just got his shotgun out, and he shot that whooping crane. Well, folks, I don't know how it happens or how they do it, but within 2 days, animal rights people were at his front door. They rung his front doorbell. He opened the door, and there they stood, a little group in a semicircle out on his front steps. And out of this little group, a hatchet-faced woman stepped forward. You got that picture, haven't you? She says, I understand you shot a whooping crane. The farmer said, yeah, I did. How's come you shot him? Well, said he's making a mess out of my farm, ruining my gates and my tractors and all that stuff. I tried all the nice ways to get rid of him, and he wouldn't have it, so I just shot him. Well, she says, we don't like that. Well, he said, I'm sorry, but that's the way it is. Well, she said, what'd you do with him? Well, the farmer said, we ate him. Said, you ate a whooping crane? Good Lord, said, what did it taste like? Well, the farmer said the taste was somewhere between an eagle and a spotted owl. The wife and I have lived in so many different areas. We lived in Cincinnati, Ohio, and New York City and Chicago and all those places. I was in Cincinnati, Ohio, when it was the biggest radio station in the world, WLW. It was 500,000 watts. And boy, I'll tell you, we covered the world in those days with that old radio station. Now, other people that were there at the time, Rosemary Clooney was there. She was on the staff with me, and also Doris Day was there too. In fact, my dressing room was right next door to Doris Day's and Rosemary Clooney's. And there was a big hole in the wall right there. You know? I never did bother to patch that. I figured, let the girls have their fun. I wanted to get into more commercials. I was working in Chicago, and I tell you, I wanted to get in the commercials because I knew that's where a lot of money was. So I asked the fellow up there, I said, how do I get in commercials? Well, he said, Stubby, I'll tell you. In order for you to get into commercials, you're going to have to lose that Indiana accent. Said, you got to have those beautiful, big pear-shaped tones. Well, I said, how do I do that? Well, he said, take some lessons. So I took elocution lessons. Boy, I'll tell you, I worked, and he said, after you get that all accomplished, then he said, get on a plane and go to New York City. That's where the commercials are done. So, folks, I worked several months on that. Finally, I had down to where my voice was beautiful, big pear-shaped tones. I got on a plane and I headed for New York City. Boy, I could hardly wait to try it on somebody up there. I walked into a store, and I said, I'd like a pound of bacon, and a quart of milk, and a loaf of bread. The guy said, you're from Indiana. I said, how do you know that? He said, this is a hardware store. After we lived all around over the country, various places, his wife and I, you know, we never found a place we liked better than back home. We were both born right in this area. So we moved back there, and I'll tell you, we've enjoyed it so doggone much. Well, there's a little town about 2 miles from our farm, a little town called Young America. Oh, it's kind of a nice little old town, but there's no crime there. I like that. The only time you have to lock your car in young America is in August. If you don't lock it then, somebody will fill it with zucchini. We got a little old store there called Miller's Corner Store. Farmers go in there mornings and drink coffee and solve a lot of world problems right there. I walked in there one morning and there's a big sign there. It said, "Beware of dog." Well, I looked down there. At the bottom of that sign is an old coonhound laying there. You couldn't tell that darn dog was dead or alive. Well, I said, "Skip, now does that sign go with that dog?" He said, "Yeah, it does." Well, I said, "That old dog wouldn't hurt nobody." Skip said, "I know, but before I put the sign there, people kept tripping over it." We got lots of wonderful characters there that I write about in my columns. Wallace's Farmer, Prairie Farmer, and a lot of them. And we got an old boy there named Uncle Hopper Green, and he's quite a character. Just before I come over here last week, I saw him coming down the street. He was coming toward me, and he was all bent over, and he had his arm in kind of a gnarled position. And my gosh, he wobbled up to me, and I said, "Uncle Hopper, what in the world happened to your arm?" He looked around, and he said, "Well, I'll be danged." He said, "I guess I dropped my watermelon back there." He was in the hospital. He was in for his 150,000-mile checkup. And I went up to see him. I said, "How you doing, Uncle Hopper?" He said, "Stubby," he said, "they treat me like a dog in here." Well, I said, "Now, come on, you don't mean that?" About that time, a nurse walked in and said, "All right, Uncle Hopper, roll over." We enjoy people like that because they bring us some humor and some fun. And that's what it's all about. We had an old feller there I got to tell you about, Uncle Charlie Pugh. He was in his high 90s when he got so he wasn't feeling very good, but he'd always made everybody laugh. And I went over to see him, and he said, "Well, Stubby," he said, "I'm not feeling very good." He said, "Could you get old Doc Ladbrook over here?" So I called Doc and told him to come over. He did, and he examined Uncle Charlie. And he said, "Uncle Charlie, you're right. You don't have much longer." He said, "Is there anything you want?" Uncle Charlie said, "Yeah." He said, "Get the town lawyer over here." Well, we got the town lawyer over there. Uncle Charlie said, "Now I want Doc, you sit on one side of the bed. Lawyer said, you sit over on the other side and hold my hands." Well, they did. They sat there and held his hand. Quite a while. Finally, Doc said, "Uncle Charlie, what's going on here? What are we doing?" Well, Uncle Charlie said, "I read in the Bible where Jesus died between two thieves," and he said, "That's the way I want to go." I love to fish. People ask me what I do for relaxation, and I do. I love to fish. I got a deer creek running right through my farm, and it's a good-sized stream, and I like to go down there, and it takes me about a minute and a half to go fishing. And I like to take the pole down there and catch a few smallmouth bass and things, and it's terrific. But last summer went by so dang fast, I didn't get my fishing all done. If I hadn't hired a guy, we'd have never done it. Together, both of us made it. Speaking of fishing, that always reminds me of a story. Everything does. It's about these three fellows out in a boat on a lake. It was a beautiful day, clear blue sky. By gosh, and all of a sudden, Jesus appeared in a boat with them. Oh, you can imagine how it shook these fellows up. Well, they tried to be so nice, and they greeted him, and he greeted them and everything. It come around to the fact that Jesus asked one fellow, he said, "How are you feeling anyway?" Well, the one fisherman said, he said, "I got some arthritis in my right shoulder, Said, it bothers me when I cast. He said, it hurts awful bad. But that's about it. Well, Jesus said, I can take care of that. And he rubbed his hand over the man's shoulder, and the guy raised his arm. He says, I can't believe it. He said, that's perfect. No pain there at all. Thank you so much. And he asked the next guy there, he said, how you feeling? Well, the guy said, since you asked, he said, I'm having a hip replaced in a couple of weeks, so he said, I got a lot of pain there. Well, Jesus said, I can take care of that. He rubbed his hand over the man's hip. And the guy moved around the boat after that. He says, I just can't believe it. No pain. I've had pain for years. This is so wonderful. Thank you. And he looked at the other guy. He said, how you feeling? The other guy said, don't touch me. Jesus said, I'm on total disability. Our churches play such an important part in all of our lives around in our community. And I'm going to the same little old church that I went to as a child. I was baptized in this church, a little Presbyterian church in Deer Creek, Indiana. And we think back over the years at the preachers that we've had and how wonderful they've been to service and so forth. And I know you have too. And most all preachers are good, but once in a while, folks, you'll hit one. And we had one like that. I tell you, this guy his sermons were terrible. He didn't like visitation. He couldn't sing. He didn't like fried chicken. He didn't like visitation or his kids. He was just a bad preacher. And we tried to figure out how in the world can we get rid of him and still be nice. We didn't want to be nasty to him, but golly, we did need to get rid of him. Well, folks, it all took care of itself. One Sunday morning, he got up in the pulpit and he said, well, folks, this is going to be my last Sunday with you. 3 years ago, Jesus called me to your church to preach for you. And he said, I've done it for 3 years. But he said, now, Jesus has called me to a church in Chillicothe, Missouri. So this is going to be my last Sunday. Right after that, our little choir stood up and sang, what a friend we have in Jesus. And I'll tell you another thing about churches. The church secretary is always about the nicest person that there ever is in any community. They're so nice, so cooperative, and they work so hard. And I'm recalling this about the fellow that called the church, and the secretary answered. Very nice. And this fellow was kind of a brash guy. He said, I'd like to speak to the main hog at the trough there. Oh, the secretary said, please, sir, do not refer to our beloved pastor in those words. Well, the guy said, I didn't know. He said, I'd won the Hoosier lottery and I was going to donate $1 million to your church. Secretary says, just a minute. I believe I see that big old boar coming this way now. Well, that kind of takes care of us Protestants. How about the Catholic folks? I'm sure we got a lot of them in here today too, and it's wonderful to have them. By gosh, they're just, I don't know a whole lot about the Catholic religion or anything, but I do know there's two things important to Catholics. That's rhythm and bingo. I must have hit a nerve there. If you don't have the right rhythm, bingo! The Pope visited us last summer, came to this country, landed up in Newark, New Jersey, And of course they sent out a big limousine to pick him up. And oh gosh, he was just the nicest man, you know. And the driver of the limousine said, "Your Eminence, is there anything you'd like to see on the way back to the hotel?" Well, the Pope said, "No, not really." But he said, "You know, I've ridden in these limousines all my life," but he said, "I've never driven one." He said, "You suppose I could drive this one?" Well, the driver said, "Your Eminence, of course, anything you'd like." So the Pope got under the wheel, and the driver got in the back seat. And they pulled away from the curb. Down the road they went. And the driver in the back seat said, "Your Eminence," said, "you do have to watch. This is kind of a speed trap through here, and they will get you." Well, it was too late already. The light was a-flashing, red light. And this cop got out of his car and come up there to the window of the limousine. He said, "I'm going to have to give you boys a ticket for speeding." And he looked in there, and he said, "But just a minute, I got something I want to do." He went back to his squad car and called the chief back at the office. He said, "Chief, I got a car pulled over for speeding." But he said, "I can't bring myself to give him a ticket because the guy's too important." Wow. The chief said, "Who is it? Is it the governor?" "No," he said, "he's more important than the governor." He said, "The mayor?" "No, more important than the mayor." Well, my gosh, the chief said, "You don't mean tell me the President of the United States here?" Oh, the guy said, "I think he's more important than that." Well, the chief said, "Who is the guy?" Well, my gosh, the cop said, "I don't know who the guy is," but he said, "The Pope's driving him." Well, I say you go to your church, I'll go to mine, but let's walk along together. That's the main thing. Doggone right. Well, I do have some time to go over. Well, thank you. I think we all agree to that. I'll tell you one thing. I go over to the old nursing home we've got there and visit some of the old timers in there. Some of them I've known for a long time. And I go over there and tell them some stories, you know, or play the harmonica or sing a few old songs, and they always enjoy it. And, when I was over there last time, there was an elderly lady sitting out on the porch of the nursing home. And this old boy, these 90s, he kind of shuffled out there where she was. And this lady said, "Mister," says, "I bet you $20 I can guess how old you are." Well, this old man, boy, he thought about that. He'd like to win that $20. Oh, he said, "I believe I'll take you up on that. I'll bet you $20 you can't guess how old I am." Well, the old lady said, "All right," said, "take your clothes off." So he did. She said, "Now turn around." He turned around. She said, "You're 92. Well, he said, "How in the world did you know that?" Well, she said, "You told me yesterday." Being from Indiana, when you tell people that, they always go right into the basketball situation. We're quite a basketball state over there. And probably the biggest game we have all during the years when Purdue goes down to play IU, Indiana, at Bloomington. Boy, you can't get a seat there for nothing. They're hanging from the rafters for that game. I was down there last fall when they had the game. Oh, my goodness, I never saw such a crowd in my life. And a woman sitting next to me, I looked over there and there's an empty seat next to her. I said, "Good land, an empty seat at this ball game?" I said, "Who's that belong to?" Well, she said, "That was my husband." Said he passed away. Well, I said, "Goodness sake, couldn't you give his seat to one of your relatives?" "Oh," she said, "I suppose so, but they're all at his funeral." Well, for you folks who still wonder, by golly, I'm so proud. Last September the 8th, my wife and I celebrated our 56th wedding anniversary. Ah, yeah. And we get along pretty good most of the time. Oh, we have the same little controversies that you folks have. We got in on that toilet seat deal that they had here a while back, you know. The seat be left up or down, you know. Well, men, you only have to do it one time. And I'll tell you, a woman, sleepy woman walking down the hall at night, you can tell the actual moment of contact. When warm flesh meets cold, wet porcelain. She hollered, "Who left that toilet seat up?" Of course, the answer is obvious. I'm the only other person in the house. We argued back and forth which way it ought to be left, and I finally settled the whole darn thing. I just took the seat off. And then there's another thing us husbands go through with. We don't have any clothes closets. Hey, you guys got your own clothes closet? Well, of course you haven't. I built folks a brand new home, and I had my own clothes closet, for about 2 weeks. Then I saw a dress hanging there one day. About a week later, there was 8 dresses there. You know where I'm at today, folks? I got a nail back of the door. My gosh. But oh, hey, we certainly get along good. And I can remember when I courted her. Gosh, it's a lot different the way they court girls today. Back in those days, I used to take my wife a little bottle that evening in Paris for a few. Remember that? Had the blue tassel on it. Oh, guys, that done it. And then I'd take her a box of chocolates now and then. But I quit that. I went down there and see her one night, and there's another guy sitting there eating my chocolate. So that was the end of that. My gosh. But I finally proposed to her. I just said to her, I said, "I'll bet you $5 you won't marry me." She said, "I'll take you up on that and raise you 3. And she did. But I'll tell you, as you get older, folks, it's kind of nice. You can enjoy the finer things in life. You can't do none of them. But you can check things out. I can tell you there's 4 ways you can tell when you're getting older. First, you forget names. Then you forget faces. Then next, you forget to zip up. And last, you forget to zip down. You know, folks, you've got a great sense of humor here, all of you, and for heaven's sake, hang on to it. We need more laughter in America, and it could start with us. Now, if you have a little trouble creating humor wherever you are, in your home or your community or where you work, I've got some cassettes back here as usual, and they're funny. Yeah, you guys, I got 7 different ones, and they're just great. A lot of people put them in their car, you know, and drive down the road laughing. That's all right if you're with somebody. But if you're by yourself riding along laughing, people will look at you, but they won't monkey with you. I got a real price on those cassettes back there, and I'll guarantee you'll love them. If you're not completely satisfied with them, you bring them back here next Tuesday. I'll be in Columbus, Ohio.